guys, we're here for another Conscious Living TV episode here with the wonderful Sashi. Sashi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Really excited to be talking to Sashi today, just about her journey and what she's doing and her thoughts on conscious living. So Sashi, could you start by telling us about yourself?
Yeah, so well, how far back do you want me to go?
I guess all the way, maybe.
Yeah.
Because I think it gives us context.
Context, yeah. Okay, so in a nutshell, I was born in what used to be called Czechoslovakia. We escaped when I was 4, spent 2 years in refugee camps, finally got to Australia, went to school. I was like the weird kid with the accent that didn't speak English, and fast forward to now, and I have 2 little people of my own and a company called Whalesome Co, which is like eco yoga mats. You've got one, don't you?
I do.
Yeah. Uses it every morning for her yoga.
Definitely, vouch for them. They're amazing.
Oh, thank you. And I've done like a bunch of holistic therapy research, and that I use with people, so transpersonal art therapy, nutrition, herbalism, naturopathy, Reiki, energy healing, that sort of stuff. So just like holistic conscious living as best I can.
Yeah, definitely. So has that area and these parts of things that you've studied in, have they always been of interest to you, or like sort of when did you start to discover these?
I don't know. I feel like I started.
Thanks, Nick.
Oh gosh. I started probably when I was a teenager, but like our family's always been a bit like conscious living inclined, I guess. Mum's always been quite, I don't know if spiritual's the right word, but sort of aware of that sort of stuff, and I guess she must have passed it down to us as well. When I say us, I'm talking about Mish as well, my sister.
Yes.
But then myself, probably when I had my first child, actually, that probably saved me from going down a pretty like reckless wrong path and put me back on track to what like was true to me and that sort of living lifestyle. Yeah,
awesome.
Did you find it hard when you were growing up? Because you were maybe a little bit different compared to everyone else, because you had that, like, say, European background coming across to Australia and then trying to fit in, because I think so many people do in life just try and find their place to fit in. And that might have been hard, especially with being so young. You know, everyone's starting over here, you started somewhere else and then coming over. How did you find that?
It was super hard. Like back then too, I think this country was more racist. Like it wasn't quite as in the schools. I mean, it wasn't as accepting. So it wasn't just the kids that were like, what girl, you know. And my salami sandwich is stinking with pasta. Didn't help. Like, oh my god. I'd be like, Mum, please just buy this thing called Vegemite. Don't give me salami anymore. But actually, I had a teacher, and I'll never forget this. Like for years, that said to me, you are taking the place of a nice Australian child. You should go back to your country. So it was like nowhere to fit in, not with the teachers, not with the children. It was really tough. Super tough. And then like going on, I just probably never quite found my place, which probably pushed me more to nature-based things, and I would go off into the forest, and you know, that's how that tends to be the happy place. So I think my fitting in wasn't necessarily with humans, but more with animals and trees and nature.
Beautiful. It's really nice.
Even in the refugee camps, we'd just go off into the forest because it was plonked in the middle of nowhere in Austria, and we'd just spend the days in the forest.
Fascinating. So now you've got kids of your own. Do you ever worry about them and having similar experiences at school, or do you feel like things have shifted?
No, I don't, because I was so like blessed, like doesn't even cover it. We found an amazing school. like, a lot of kids are happy in mainstream schools, but I just knew that wasn't the avenue that I wanted to put my kids into. So I found this like little tiny bush school up in Terry Hills, Kinma.
Nice.
And like they just
love it there.
Oh my god, yeah. It's not school. Like they ask when the holidays are finished, like, can we go back to school now? You know, it's just beautiful. You call the teachers by the first name, and they're always down by the creek and climbing trees, and
the way it should be for
the
a
way
child,
it should be.
You know?
Yeah, and they learn individually at their own pace in like mixed groups.
Yeah.
So I've never had to worry, and they're such like Tanika. She's 12 now, and she's such an angel. She's so amazing. She's like, so almost like she's an enlightened being that's just come back because she chose to, you know. And River is just like a little powerhouse, and like, rah, here I am, world. You know?
For sure.
Yeah. So, that hasn't been a concern.
I remember our first experience. I think it would have been me meeting River, and we were down by the beach, and you literally let him like run off for probably like 100 or 200 meters. He wasn't that far away, and I found it so interesting because so many parents would be chasing their child, going like, he's going to hurt themselves, and you were just so relaxed. And I think that's so nice to see as well, because you know, parents can be so stressed about a child pulling down something or something like that, but it's seeing that nature of yours, and then obviously that will probably be better for him in the long run as well, because he's learning like he's almost like learning by himself. You're not telling him you can't do that, you can do this sort of thing. He's just free nature, bang, like doing what he loves. So
it's so important for anyone that has kids. Like, you want to like wrap them in cotton wool and be like, careful, but that's part of them consciously creating awareness of who they are. And if you're telling them and constantly like parametering what they can do, I mean, you have to within reason. If we're walking next to a cliff,
of course,
I'm like, hold my hands up. But other than that, it's just like, go. And he's had the wildest falls and like broken a few things, like you do, but they just learn what they can do, and their bodies are so capable and can do so much more because you allow them to, and they've got the freedom. Really important.
Interesting you say like they're able to then develop more self-awareness of themselves. Are there certain things that you feel like you've done as they've grown up that have contributed to them building a stronger sense of self-awareness, or also of the awareness around them?
Probably. Like, I don't want to take too much credit for their awesomeness, because they're both really awesome.
Definitely. But I mean, from what they witness day in and day out, I think that would influence them a lot and the people that they are.
So I always, like, above all else, I remind them to be kind. Like, that is just like above everything else, be kind, and then appreciate. You know, so appreciate, and I just remind them that appreciation appreciates. So when they're living from that space of like, rather than I want this and I don't have this, but like, I'm so thankful and appreciate what I have. And they just have such beautiful mindsets on everything. And like we were talking about before, excuse me, I'm not a big shopper or anything, and they don't really, like, we can go through Woolies or whatever store we're in, and they're not going to be going, can we get this, can we get this, can we get this? They just don't. And then on the odd times that they do, we talk about, well, do you really want it, and do you need it, and what toys do you have at home, and you know, what's it made of, because that's going to be in landfill for 50 million years. So I don't necessarily say no to every plastic toy, like they've got a couple, but it's always within reason, and it's always explained, like, you know, that this is, you know, we try and see if there's an alternative. So I think just raising them consciously and having conversations that maybe some parents think the child's too young to learn, like they're never too young, they're so smart and they catch on so quickly. So just being really open and talking to them about everything, and being the example. Like, you can't be like, oh darling, it's not good to want things, and then like shop yourself. Like
Yeah, definitely. I think creating that conversation is so important. It's such a good point. That it's quite simple, I would imagine, and it's just sort of creating a conversation around, do you really want it? I really like that. And, that then, because sometimes we just go on impulse. And also from what we see around us without thinking, do I really need this? It's something that we've been trying to do more as well, when we go to the shops and we're like,
mindful.
This is great, but exactly, that mindfulness.
But But like the reality is a lot of shopping is from like a place of numbing something or like that fulfillment. And so, you know, it's like trying to tell them, well, if you're feeling like you're missing something, let's talk about that. We don't need to go and buy something to fill that gap. So it's like just making sure that they're well-rounded and, you know, their thoughts are happy, and if they're not, like, we address it, and just getting into nature. Like, oh my god, like I could if I had to put something on repeat, that's it. Getting into nature, getting grounded, and then when you're that connected in with nature, you kind of don't really need to look out for like outside of that for toys so much, because River will pick up a stick and that is like entertainment for hours, you know.
It's
like,
so true. Yeah.
Definitely. Do you ever worry about maybe when they grow up to be teenagers or when they're in their early 20s and are more integrated into the mainstream society?
To live in normal people.
Normal people. Do you think that like this is sort of setting them in good stead for that? So hopefully they will be able, when they do confront people that maybe aren't on a similar path to them, they'll be able to.
Yeah, well, I mean, both of them do, like, River's, like, mad, like, he lives and breathes jiu-jitsu, and T Krav, and so they mingle with the normals all the time, and they're just so, they're really, one of the things I've taught them is, like, people are allowed to have different views to you,
of course,
and that's not like wrong or right, it's just, and so they're really open-minded and really accepting of
that's nice.
And when there's like, because they're both like, no, River's competitive but not in a sense of like mean, if that makes sense, which can, I think it crops up a lot more in mainstream schools where they're a little bit, maybe a bit more
competitive in a way,
in a mean streak. I don't know how to word it without like sounding offensive, but, and he just sort of meets that with like, oh no, I'm your friend, so let's do this together.
Yeah, nice.
You know, so they and Tanika's just like next level beautiful with that sort of stuff, and she starts high school next year.
Oh wow.
So, which will be a mainstream high school, and she's super excited.
Yeah.
There's not any element of nervousness for her, but I feel a bit like, oh god, you've been so sheltered.
Are any of her friends from the other school going to a similar school that she's going to? Okay.
No, she's going by herself, and she's like, oh, I'm so ready to meet new people and make friends, and you know, she just takes everything. So I think because they're so strong in who they are, I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, you said before, like, you don't want to take credit because they are just, they've got something in them that's incredibly spiritual, and they're already, you've sort of set them in that path of consciousness and mindfulness. And,
But you know, it's funny, when both of them were like probably around the 2-year mark, they both had like blonde curls around that time, and at DY Beach, at both of them this happened to, there was like, I don't know why DY Beach, but a lot of monks come to DY Beach.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it's like a place that they stop to tour through or something, but these Buddhist monks came in the orange robes with malas, and it happened to both of them that they came up and were like, and asked like if they could touch their malas so that they could bless them for them.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so both T and Riv have some sort of energy.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
That's really beautiful. Another area that I'm super fascinated with, Sashi, is the Reiki, I forget the words that you were using before, but like the energetic healing and sort of this more spiritual side of living, because, you know, I'm very in agreement with Sashi that, you know, we're not alone here, and when you can feel that energy, do you feel like that's come into as well how you've raised the kids, like your awareness of that, and your awareness of them as souls? And
well, children are like super, because they've just come from source, right? Like they're the closest to source you can get, and so they're already really aware of that. It's just taken out of them, I guess. And so I was always just open with them, and I can't remember now if it was T. I think it was T, not Riv. She could see but for a little while. She can't really now, but when she was little she could see. She'd be like talking to someone. Oh god.
People watching.
But I never sort of said to her, oh, that's doesn't exist or whatever, you know. Like, I was always just really open with both of them, and I just say, well, and it would just be so insane. And actually, we were having this conversation in the car yesterday, and I was just saying to them, it would just be so small-minded to think that this is the only, like, Earth that has living creatures on it, and it's just people, and then, you know, like that there's it's just crazy. It's such a thought of, like, us being the superior being. Superior beings, like, we're like a grain of sand in, like, beaches and beaches of sand, so how could we ever think that? So, integrating that sort of thought process that we're not the only ones here, and that there is a divine source, like, whatever that is, and then reminding them, too, that it's okay for people to believe whatever they want, and whatever their connection to, say, like, God or whatever is, that's... It's personal. Yeah, and exactly. However people define it for them is really unique. Yeah, but to have a connection is important to something more than yourself. Yeah. What initially, like, have you always been interested in this space and in like, you know? I think so. Like, without even knowing. Yeah. I've always been drawn to crystals and energetic healing, or just even, like, I don't know how to word it properly, but, like, when you meet people and not necessarily hearing the words they're saying, but feeling the energy that comes from them. Yeah. So I can walk past someone and instantly know what they're about, you know, and their words can be totally different, and people around me can go, oh, this is, like, the nicest person in the world, you know, and I'm like, ooh, is it though? Or vice versa, people go, oh, they're a bit shady, but their energy's so beautiful, they just are shy. You know? So I've always worked unknowingly and now knowingly with energy fields, and amazing. One thing that's interesting to share is that Nick and I live next door to a cemetery. And when Sasha walked in, she was just like, oh, what's going on? Is it gridded yet? So, but it is, like, even so, though, the energy is still calmer than if you were to walk into a shopping centre. Of course. I think where, like, a lot of living people are walking around, there's energy, like, you know, I can't spend, say, more than an hour in the city. Because then it's just like, oh, God, I've got to get into the ocean and wash this off. Yeah, I even find catching a bus in the morning, you know, it's just sitting next to people and things, you might not be aware of it, and you might not even agree that there is an energetic world around us, but without realising it, we are all absorbing the energies of people. And that's something that I've become so much more mindful of, and every morning I sort of, like, cover myself in a blanket or a ring, and I'm like, protective bubble. Exactly. It's just like, okay, it's all good. I do that for the kids. I'm like, okay, your energy is going to be protected. You're in your own little bubble. We're really receptive to and some of us more than others, but we're really receptive to latching onto things, and we never know, like, and a small latching onto us. A small thing happens and you're all of a sudden triggered.
That's true. Do you find there's a lot more like-minded people now to when you were younger? Do you think people are slowly sort of coming more spiritual, being aware of, like, how to live and what's good and what's bad?
Definitely. I remember when I was younger, it was kind of like the neighbourhood witch or, like, the hippie, you know, and they're always, like, wearing tie-dye and, like, messy hair. It's like, oh, you're not helping the cause.
People put you in this category sort of thing. It's not really a category. You're just aware of what's around you.
Right, it's just, it's our natural state, I think. And because our society is so far removed from natural state. But I think now we've hit the peak of being removed and disconnected, and people are just like, even people that don't believe in anything are just like, oh God, there's got to be something more, and they're kind of seeking it out, which is awesome. But then again, we are also in a time where you can do a weekend course and you're a life coach.
I know what you mean.
So you've got to be so discerning to find true wisdom, you know, and someone that can actually work with your energy and not just like fluff. Do you know what I mean? But
and that's the hard thing. I don't know if we've spoken about this, but I see a lot more people trying to catch on to this at the moment, and I don't know whether it's the it thing now, and then, as you said, like, people want to be life coaches, and it's like, how can you be a life coach and you're only 25? Like, you haven't really lived. You know what I mean? And that's the crazy thing. And it's just like, I feel like talking to elderly or people like that, and then you can see how they've journeyed on and what you can learn. You know, I don't really know if you can box a person and be like, I'm a life coach. You know? I can coach you to a better life. I think it's just, you can talk about...
You can share your wisdom and maybe your experiences, but kind of labeling yourself as a life coach.
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of... like, a lot of people do it for the wrong reasons, and they do it for, like, the money side of things.
Of course,
and because it is, like, a quick sort of avenue career-wise to get into, but... And there's a lot of frauds out there too. But, you know, there are a lot of people that are doing amazing stuff, and it is, like, such... Like, you just see it, like, everyone's into it now. And good, I guess, at the end of the day, because we do need more awareness and we do need more consciousness, but... Yeah, I think it's really important because there is so much disconnect. So a lot of people can't read the energy of, and so they go to get help from someone whose life is in shambles themselves. You know, but awareness is the first step. So it's better than it was years ago.
Yeah, and that's how I initially felt with us being on social media, because it can work both ways. I find with social media, it can be really toxic and it can make you feel worse about yourself. Or if you see how things that can encourage you, remind you to feel gratitude, you know, and are actually positive. So that's what we're trying to do with the page, but also not label ourselves as we know everything and do what we're doing. So it is that funny sort of balance of trying to make that.
But it is like, it's where we live now, isn't it? Like, we live in virtual world of social media, and if you're not on there, you're not reaching people. And if you want to make a difference, then there's no point preaching to the choir. Like, you've got to get on there and share good stuff.
Exactly.
I think the easiest way is like trying it yourself. That's what I've always found in like the last probably year, 2 years, when I've been going, okay, cool, I'll try this. And people might judge you for doing it and be like, oh, that doesn't work. And I'm like, well, it might be working for me, you know, but you can't say that because you haven't really tried it. And I always find that whenever you go, I'm just doing something different, I might be fasting in the morning, and people judge you and be like, oh no, I need breakfast to get me my energy.
It's the most important meal of the day.
and that's literally off a cereal slogan, like, it's the most important meal of the day. Right? That's where it comes from, cereal slogans.
Marketing.
But it's crazy. And then you go, well, I'm trying something different, and people start judging you for that, and they haven't even tried it themselves. And then it could be like 6 months later, they're like, oh, it actually does work. You know what I mean? And I find that so fascinating. So I think for myself and Jess, we just try lots of different things, and then you can see what does and doesn't work.
Yeah, and share your journey as you go.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's have you heard of Jesse Elder?
No.
Oh, he's just this brilliant, I guess, mindset guru. And I think he is eligible for the guru title. He's incredible. And he talks about, you cannot possibly go and teach something and coach and whatever else if you haven't tried it and experienced it for yourself. He said you're a fraud if you haven't, you know. So you've got to go out and have as many experiences and adventures as you can, and then translate that into helping others. But you've got to look him up. He's incredible.
Definitely. I know. Try and get him. Is he Australia based?
No, I think he's based in America, but he travels.
Cool.
Incredible human.
Yeah, fantastic. That's very good. So one thing you were chatting about before was something new you're starting. I can't remember what you called it. What was it?
There's always something.
It was like around mental. I think it was like mental health or mental awareness.
Yeah. Okay. So once the school holidays are over, I'll be kicking off my practice. Which it's so hard to find a name that's not taken in this saturated field. It's like, holy crap, it's all taken back. So it would be like a holistic, I suppose therapy. I've done, transpersonal art therapy is like the basis of it, that sort of holistic counselling, and then just everyone is so different and unique, and different things work for different bodies, and you're not going to know until you have that session with someone. So that's what I'm kind of going to offer. But at the moment I'm writing a book. I'm nearly in the rough edit stage.
Oh, amazing. That is so exciting.
Because T, like I said, is going into high school next year. And I was like, that's a really big thing.
Oh, for sure.
She doesn't, she's like, but for me as a parent, I'm like, oh my God, it's such a big life step, you know, going from this tiny little pond to this massive ocean. And then I realised, there's not much out there in terms of or celebrating it, like ceremony around and ritual around that, and then like a information for the girls and boys, but I'm just saying girls because T's a girl. And so I've just written a book for girls transitioning from primary to high school.
Amazing.
And that just goes over all the topics of just what they would be going through at that sort of 13-year-old mark, and even into year 8 actually, because that transition happens that first year and into year 8, doesn't it, really? And just talks about being unique and the very real thing of bullying, especially when you're unique and a little bit different. You know, a lot of girls don't really know themselves and all the hormones are kicking in, so
they're trying to find their feet, and that's the hard thing. I think when you almost, you know, they get to that high school age, you're sort of like letting go, and then as you said, like they're going into like the ocean sort of thing with everyone else, and then there's just so many other people, you know, different personalities coming at them. Where do I fit in? Do I like what this person's doing? Do I not like what this person's doing? I think it's so hard, and it's such a big pinnacle of life, because in that like 5 to 6 year span, you know, you could be a good person and you start out to be a bad person because you're surrounding yourself with the wrong people. So it's so hard to like gauge.
And with girls, like at least boys just like
they get
punch
over
it out
That's
and
the
then
thing.
it's done and like,
it's
let's
done.
go hang out and play footy. Whereas girls, they're so bitchy and insidious, and so it's just talking about that and finding a way for them to like know themselves. And it's talking not just to the don't want to say victim, but the people that get bullied. It's talking to the bully as well. Saying like, sometimes your impulse will be you're insecure and you're just going to lash out, but how does that work in the long run? So it's a really important book, I think.
I think so as well. I would have loved to have something like that. And
Me too.
I mean, I guess you have to go through your teenage years to learn all of these things, but at the same time, I'm also like, I wish, you know, you realise that it was okay not to fit in, that it was okay to be unique. You know, you keep trying to find yourself and be like, oh, maybe I need to be more like that. And then you're like, no, like, what do I like? And then you get to 18 and they're like, all right, well, go to uni. What are you going to study? What job are you going to get? And you're like, I don't even know what I like to do.
Exactly.
And so I think it will be such a powerful book. It's really hard sometimes when we are fed so much external information if we don't have that internal awareness.
And there's so much like marketing and whatever else, and movies that target that age group, but not necessarily in a positive way.
Exactly.
So there's no
that's very true
positive framework for the girls to work with, and it's so necessary. So I'm really excited about it.
That's super exciting. And then of course we haven't touched on the beautiful whale song so much, but as I said, I love practicing on the whale song mats that
the whale
Sasha and Michelle have. How did that start? Like, what sort of spurred you guys to
I can't even remember. I feel like the idea, Rupa was really little, I feel like, but we were just sitting in the living room and just went, we should just create our own eco mats that are completely non-toxic and biodegradable and because there were a few issues with, you know, like regular mats can get slippery sometimes, especially in hot yoga. So like that tick all the boxes of being useful, and they're light enough to travel with, and they can be outdoors and rah-de-rah. But then with something like, because your yoga mat is like your sacred space, right? And not everyone's got the time or the inclination to set up an altar or whatever else when they're practicing. They're just not going to. So we wanted to bring the sacredness of an altar onto the mat, and not just like, well, that's a pretty pattern, but you know, like just to raise the vibration. So the whale was just a no-brainer, because Michelle's a marine biologist, and like I've never met a human that hasn't connected with the whale. You know, like they're just so majestic and
obsessed. Just my whale necklace.
Everything's about whales for Jess.
And they're like ancient wisdom keepers for the earth. And so like, what a beautiful animal totem to do your inner work and your practice with. And then the original mats have bees too, which is sacred and connection with the sun. And so we just wanted to bring that sort of sacredness to people's what's that word when people send in testimonials, feedback. Because we had the intention of that, but you never know how it's going to translate into real life. But we had so many messages of people saying they've changed my life Oh my God. And one lady, you know, I won't go into massive detail because it was a private message, but she was just going through a really hard time in her life, and her son had a really bad accident and her grandchild passed away. And she said she was just going through a horrible, obviously, phase, and it just made a massive difference to her life. So kind of feel like it was, because it was just it was just downloaded on the spur of the moment, and it just feels like it was just meant to come through and just be here for the people that did get a worse on that, to raise their vibration, or the whale told him to be there for them in like a really visual way.
You and Michelle have a really strong connection to nature, I feel.
Yeah.
That's something you sort of said, you've always sort of been out in nature. Yeah. What is it that you get from nature, or you feel when you're in nature, or like, I don't know, is it just a presence, or is it
it's a bit of both. Like for me, I can't speak for Michelle, but she's like a mermaid. That girl can free dive like nothing else. But we always kind of have animals that just sort of come and say hi. For me personally, when I'm in nature, I feel like I'm home. You know, like it just feels like whatever's going on, I feel balanced and I feel like I'm at home. And it translates strangely for people that don't believe it, but say trees, for example, I feel like they impart wisdom. Obviously they're not talking to me, like, good day, Sasha, but something about the energy that they transmute, I feel like they're filling up our energy codes, and I really feel that. So when I go for a walk through the forest and I get back, I just feel so energized and I have new ideas, and and water's so cleansing and clearing, like diving into the ocean, it's like nothing else. So it's like a combination, but I feel like there's communion and wisdom that comes from nature, not just grounding and cleansing.
I always find that so interesting as well, because when you go for like a really good bushwalk in, like, let's say the Blue Mountains or something like that, and you have that fresh air, or, you know, somewhere high up in the mountains, you're like, oh, this air is so nice. Like this air, like in Sydney, or it used to be like that back in the day, you know what I mean? And now it's not. And it's just so interesting how we have to go somewhere else to go for a nice walk, and we're like, oh, this air, it just feels so nice in me. I feel refreshed. You know, it was like that back in the day here. Now it's not. You know, you go outside and like, oh, it's pretty smoggy. Like, what's that? What's going on here, sort of thing. You know. Yeah, I find it so interesting.
But the mountains, it's good you say that. It feels like there's certain places and mountains especially that, I don't know what it is, they're like more sacred. They hold sacred energy, and tribes since day dot knew that and would make pilgrimages to do their, you know, like Snow Mountains. I always feel called to the Snow Mountains, and the Aboriginal tribes met there, like from all over Australia at the same time of the year. They knew to go there when the moth seasons was there. I think they did something with the moths. They caught and ate the moths or something, but they would go there for their sacred traditions, and the mountains are amazing.
What would you say if for someone that's like, oh, but I can't get out to the mountains, or I can't get out to these spots in nature before work, say, or after work? What is there something that you do at home, or something that you would advise people to do to find that connection?
Well, I'd say yes, you can get out there. For starters, it's a choice. Obviously not before and after work, like that's like a tight squeeze, but on the weekend you've got a choice to either go down to the pub or jump in your car and go to the Blue Mountains. That's like 3 hours away. Do you know what I mean? Like, and there's even beautiful bushland here. Like, people always have that choice, but for like a quick top up, I always say to have plants, like, and to be around plants,
greenery,
for sure. Bare feet on the earth. So not like take your shoes off and walk on concrete. That's not quite gonna do it. But like into sand or earth, you know, and that's
feel more connected up for sure. Especially when I walk in sand, it feels so nice. Or here in the ocean, like it's so grounding. I love it when people say they have excuses like, in the morning. It's like, I can't, like, I've got to go to work. I'm like, what did you do last night? Oh, I stayed up till 11:30. I'm like, or go to bed early. I know last night we're trying not to do screen time anymore, and we watched a movie last night and we had a really bad night's sleep.
Yeah.
And I find that so interesting because, you know, then in the morning we didn't feel as good, not as energized.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you wake up at 5:36, you can do those things in the morning. You can go for a quick swim, you know, you can go for a walk.
You can prioritize your time, and even like a little meditation I find makes, and when you have sounds, so I put on whatever music I'm doing, like with meditation, I put the healing hertz. You could just Google that, you know,
just like on YouTube or something.
But with the screens, like I love Netflix. So there are times where I'm like, I just want to make a tea, put the kids to bed and watch a Netflix movie, you know. Blue light glasses. Yeah. Huge difference. Huge difference. So if you're going to watch at night, the blue light glasses, like, oh my gosh.
That'll be good.
Watching glasses together.
Be in bed together.
It's like they're on the screen.
Yeah, but I've noticed, because I've been trying to just read a book or something before bed rather than watch a movie, but it is so nice sometimes to just be like, fall asleep.
Numb out,
But I had the weirdest dreams and just like, and I just was so restless all night. So,
last night?
Yeah.
Oh, that could have been Halloween.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the veil is thinned and like...
True, cemetery next door.
Yeah, we've got the cemetery next door.
I'm surprised you slept at all. Like, come in here and there'd be like splatters on the wall. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, Halloween, we forgot about that one.
You could have,
Did you sage today?
No.
Sage today.
That's a great idea.
So any things that have come in, feel free to leave now.
Yeah, well, I think we should do that for sure. Yeah.
Because you do, like, even for people that aren't really into it and don't really believe Halloween and whatever, the stats show, like, that it just gets crazy.
Yeah.
Like, ambulances, you know, have more to do, police have more to do.
Yeah.
People get a bit...
Yeah, same as like a full moon, all those sorts of things people do and don't believe, it's a full moon, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, the moon can affect the whole pull of the tide and all that, and our bodies are like, what, 78% water?
Yeah.
So, of course, it makes sense that we're going to be pulled by the moon.
Definitely agree. Sash, I think the last thing we just want to ask is, I guess, from all of the things that you've experienced in your life, is there anything that you'd love to share with people that you found really useful, or a piece of wisdom that you'd like to share?
I've got like 5.
No.
Tell us. We only have time for one. So like, be kind is just my... I just, like, running a business, we get so many messages, like private messages, and some of them are just like out the gate, just rude. And it's like, holy sugar, like, come on, just be kind. And, you know, we all have bad days, I get it, but think before you press send, or think before you speak. And if it's not kind, if it's not true, don't say it.
And if it's going to hurt somebody,
don't say it. Formulate a different way to say it. So be kind. Appreciation appreciates. So when we like live from a space of appreciating, like, one of the things that I found amazing, and I still remember this from the refugee camps, is the most amazing thing I've ever seen is the giving and the compassion of people that have nothing. So when you appreciate that you're alive and like just recognizing people, then like life just takes on a whole new meaning, even when you don't have very much. You know, it's not to say don't reach for the stars, like, do we want, you know, it's awesome, but appreciate what you have and be brave to change your mind and to rewrite your story. So from my life, that's rewrite your story as often as you can. Like, don't be a victim of your story. Because when I was telling you about the man that I met when I was walking my dogs, this beautiful retired teacher, and he was just saying how childhood is so formative, and I told him about my childhood and the refugee camp and whatnot, and he's like, oh God, it's amazing, you're so normal. And I was like, oh my gosh, you can just be such a victim of your story that if you're not careful, you can use that story to make excuses as to why you can't grow and why you can't do this, and I'm not worthy, and like I have those thoughts, but I rewrite that story daily and step out of my comfort zone to do things and to show my kids that
we've got this great chance. Yeah.
We're not restricted by our story.
Yeah, so it's a choice. Choose to rewrite and change your mind. Like on big things too. Like don't just go, oh, we made such a big deal and song and dance about it. Like look silly for a minute while you change your mind, but it's really important.
Yeah, I think as well we always overthink a lot of things and we're like, oh, but if I do change my course, people think about me in this way. No one really cares.
Yeah, and if they do, who cares?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
That person's got nothing to do with your life story. They don't, walk in your shoes.
Yeah. Definitely.
So that's my little thing.
Yeah.
Be brave to rewrite your story.
Yeah, I love that. That's really beautiful. Thank you so much.
It's been amazing talking today. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed listening.
Yeah.
Don't forget to subscribe.
True.
Amazing. Subscribe.
Subscribe. So